CBS 17 News, tracking coronavirus.
I mean, it's different when you see the world shut down like that.
Lockdown in China, then quarantine here in the Triangle. A local man tells us his experience with both.
Plus, we're digging deeper to find out what employers like RPD can and can't say after a worker tests positive for COVID-19.
It's kind of crazy, all the people that showed up.
Crazy is right. Why all these people are going crazy over chicken.
But first, for the second morning in a row, Friday will start out with a frost advisory. Good evening to you. We're glad you're here with us on CBS 17. I'm Wes Hohenstein. So everyone again in central North Carolina has the frost advisory. Most of us above freezing, but your plants, your car could have some frost on it tomorrow morning as we will start off again in the 30s. Technically, these numbers tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. are going to be about 2 or 3 degrees warmer than this morning, but 30s are still cold in my book. So bundle up then, but get ready to shed some layers because by lunchtime we soar into the 60s on our way to the 70s. And then this weekend, we've got rain to talk about. Come back in a few minutes and I'll take you hour by hour through both days this weekend and tell you what exactly to expect.
CBS 17 News, tracking coronavirus.
Authorities aren't just tracking the spread of coronavirus. CBS 17 confirms some local authorities are tracking your cell phone movements.
CBS 17's Mackenzie Stasko is digging deeper into how Wake County is tracking social distancing. Mackenzie.
Well, Angela Marius, Wake County says it's using cell phone data from you and I to see if people are social distancing and sticking to that stay-at-home order.
We have various metrics that we use, including anonymous cell phone data that shows that the overwhelming majority of Wake County residents are indeed staying at home.
Wake County's Emergency Operations Center is monitoring social distancing through public websites like these. They're so-called social distancing scoreboards that use anonymous cell phone data to track where you go, for how long, and with how many people. It gives government valuable insight during this pandemic, but also unveils gaps in our privacy.
They're getting access to mobile phone data from a third party that tracks this data, that accumulates this data. You have to assume there's no privacy when you're using a phone.
Giovanni Masucci is a cybersecurity and cell phone forensics expert. He says you willingly give up your privacy and data when you share your location or download an app and agree to the terms and conditions. The fine print most of us don't read.
How important is it for you to have your location on that app, such as Facebook? How much information do you want to give up? And most folks we see are giving up a lot of information because either they don't care or they don't know they're giving it up.
Do you think using this anonymous cell phone data is the right thing, considering this is a pandemic?
I believe it's a good thing. I truly do.
Now, if you don't feel comfortable with your information being shared, whether it's anonymous or for a good cause or not, Masucci says you should take a second look at the privacy settings on your cell phone and all of the apps that you use. Live in Raleigh, Mackenzie Stasko, CBS 17 News.
Mackenzie, thank you. New since our 6 o'clock news, Wake County reporting 2 more COVID-19 deaths and Cumberland County reporting 2 more as well. That means 135 people in North Carolina have died from the coronavirus. And while the state updates us every day about the number of deaths and people in the hospital, Secretary of Health and Human Services Dr. Mandy Cohen says there isn't a good way to track how many people have actually recovered from COVID-19.
So we don't all define recovery in different ways just based on the state. So we're trying to figure out how we as a country can all define recovery so we have that sort of standardization.
The website Worldometers is tracking reports of recovery and shows nearly 60,000 people in the U.S. have survived COVID-19.
CBS 17 was the first to report a Raleigh police officer tested positive for COVID-19. And it wasn't until a week after that positive test result from the department notified fellow employees. Tonight, we're digging deeper and talking with the HIPAA expert who says reporting a positive test result is not a violation. And during this pandemic, public safety should be a priority. An internal police memo obtained by CBS 17 News states the Raleigh Police Department received notification that an officer tested positive for COVID-19 on March 31st. However, some officers were not told until April 7th, a week later. On April 9th, 2 days after the memo was issued, CBS 17 asked RPD if there was at least one case of coronavirus within the department. They would not confirm. We asked Mayor Mary Ann Baldwin, who stated she could not talk because of HIPAA regulations. However, we found out confirming a case is not a HIPAA violation.
It's about privacy and security of information. It's also about when the information must be shared.
Michael Arrigo is an expert in HIPAA privacy. He says informing the public of a positive case is not illegal as long as guidelines are followed.
What might be prudent is for the police department to say, we have an individual on our team, law enforcement officer, what have you. They do not have to disclose gender, age, name, but they could say, this person is voluntarily self-quarantining, but denying they have a case may not be the best idea either, if nothing else for public perception.
Arrigo says there are provisions in HIPAA for emergency situations, including public safety.
The federal government is relaxing penalties right now for privacy breaches if it's involving patient safety or public safety.
Also, John Midgett, the executive director of the North Carolina Benevolent Association, had this to say. Federal HIPAA laws recognize and affirm the disclosure of COVID-19 positive individuals in these limited circumstances. In Section 12 of Governor Cooper's March 10, 2020 Executive Order number 116 authorizes public officials to identify COVID-19 positive individuals to prevent, control, or investigate COVID-19. You can find all of our stories on COVID-19 and the lack of transparency within the Raleigh Police Administration by using the CBS 17 News app and CBS17.com.
Governors will be empowered to tailor an approach that meets the diverse circumstances of their own states. Every state is very different. They're all beautiful. We love them all, but they're very, very different. If they need to remain closed, we will allow them to do that. And if they believe it is time to reopen, we will provide them the freedom and guidance to accomplish that task.
President Trump outlined new guidelines today aimed at states reopening. Governor Roy Cooper was on a conference call with the president as well as other governors across the country. The president told the governors, you're going to call your own shots. He outlined a plan in 3 phases that still encourages social distancing, but eventually allows non-essential activities to resume and schools to reopen. In North Carolina, Governor Cooper says there still needs to be increased testing and improving trends when it comes to new infections and hospitalizations. His stay-at-home order lasts until late April, but could be extended.
And make sure that the public is protected while we are easing restrictions, getting people back to work, getting kids back to school, but doing it in a new normal.
We cannot stay closed forever as a state. We just can't. And so we need to find a way to get North Carolina reopened absolutely as soon as possible, but we need to make sure it's safely done so.
After the call, the governor said it's good the White House has shared similar guidance, but we still need the federal government to help with testing and personal protective equipment. Wake County extends its stay-at-home order, which now goes until the end of the month, but the county also made some modifications, easing up a few restrictions. The modifications allow faith organizations to hold drive-in services and allows retail businesses across the county to operate if they can offer delivery or curbside pickup. Wake County leaders say they went ahead with the modifications to stay-at-home order after looking at data that shows most people in Wake County are staying at home.
Why was that important to open that up?
Well, I think we all think it's important to open the economy up as quickly as possible, but in doing so with science as our guide, with data and the public health officials' interpretation of that data and what we know about this virus.
Right now, these modifications only apply to retail businesses offering goods and products. County leaders say they aren't ready to open up retail services like salons and gyms just yet.
A Raleigh man is sharing his story after being in China when the COVID-19 outbreak started and making it back to the U.S. CBS 17's Bridget Chapman joins us live in Raleigh after talking to him. Bridget.
Yeah, Angela, he's happy to be back. He was in a unique situation where he got to see firsthand how both of the governments reacted to the pandemic.
Charles Harris visits China multiple times a year for both business and family. A few days after arriving this January, the U.S. rerouted flights from Wuhan. He was in Shenzhen, which is hundreds of miles away.
I didn't get scared because of it, but, you know, it's of my opinion that when an agency does something like that, they know something.
He soon noticed a doubled police presence. He visited family in the countryside, then returned to Shenzhen before the city shut down. Stores closed, everyone's whereabouts were monitored, and temperatures scanned.
I mean, seriously, I have my temperature scanned thousands of times, probably.
He says the state-run media ran reassuring reports as talk of the virus became censored.
The Chinese weren't panicking at all. These people were not afraid.
When he finally caught a flight back to the U.S. at the end of February, he filled out paperwork and says they told him quarantining was optional when he returned to Raleigh. Then our local health officials called him and said otherwise.
They seemed real shocked at that. They were like, "Are you serious?"
Harris says the panic and media coverage about the virus have been vastly different in the U.S. But so are our freedoms.
They just don't generally think about their privacy on a daily basis inside China. We do.
He wants it to stay that way, hoping this is an experience the country learns and grows from.
It's been quite stressful as a business owner and and as somebody who's got family in both countries. This has been a wild ride for sure.
Harris says he's been decompressing by writing and plans to write a book about this. Live in Raleigh, Bridget Chapman, CBS 17 News.
Laying a family member or friend to rest is never easy, but the coronavirus has changed how funerals are allowed to happen. Families can't come together, can't console one another like they normally would. CBS 17's Amy Cutler live at the Haywood Funeral Home in Raleigh. And Amy, you spoke with the family about this process.
Yeah, I certainly did, Marius. And Joe McCoy's family held a visitation for him earlier this evening. They have a big family. They wanted to have a big funeral in his honor, but that's not possible now.
It's very overwhelming. Very overwhelming.
Mary McCoy is grieving the loss of her husband, Joe, or Bud, as everyone called him.
You miss people being able to hug you, and mourn with you.
Bud's family wasn't able to see him in the nursing home because of the restrictions in place. At the end, the pandemic also kept them out of the hospice facility. Now this.
We can't have the memorial service we had planned to have.
Bud, a paratrooper in the 82nd Airborne Division. He married Mary back in October of 1961.
He was a man's man. He was a take charge person.
You would have to love him to deal with him, and I did.
Bud died Monday from a spinal cord injury and pneumonia. He was 82 years old. He leaves behind his wife, 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and 10 great-grandchildren.
It's been harder for family to get here. Like, we have family out of state that would like to come, but because of the pandemic, their states are closed, so they can't travel.
We're having to ask them to just have immediate family come.
Orrin Haywood with Haywood Funeral Home says coronavirus has meant changes. People encouraged to wear masks, to keep wakes to fewer than 10 people, and to socially distance. Some opting for smaller gravesite ceremonies with plans to hold a larger memorial service later.
We have phone calls, we have phone chats.
Yeah, so they are able to stay in touch by phone, FaceTime, using whatever technology they can at this point. Now, Bud will be laid to rest tomorrow. They are hoping to have that bigger memorial service sometime in a few months. Live in Raleigh, Amy Cutler, CBS 17 News.
All right, Amy, thank you. Firefighters are warning about a dangerous trend. And next at 11, why raising chickens could put your home at risk of catching fire.
You might be a little chicken tomorrow morning to go outside early. We've already seen our numbers drop into the 30s and 40s. It'll get colder by tomorrow morning. I'll tell you exactly how cold and how soon we'll warm up into the 70s. Plus, do you remember what was going on 9 years ago? Think about it, and I'll show you coming up in a few minutes.
And good news for some families, which beaches are opening up in time for the weekend and who will be allowed to go.